following episode contains sensitive topic information that may not be appropriate for young listeners, as well as religious or other views that may not reflect those of the Sirens team.
Hello and welcome to Sirens of the Supernatural. This is our last episode of our September Spooktacular. Guys, can you believe it?
I know. This month has flown by.
It has, but it's been great too.
Yeah.
As far as the podcast goes, we've had so many wonderful guests that Ryan went out there and got for us. He just rounds up our guests and he never disappoints, and our guests have not disappointed this month. And so before we get into it and introduce our guest, I wanted to ask you guys how you're doing. It's, have you had a little bit to breathe and from the work day, all that? No, Ryan hasn't.
Ryan's like, I just got home.
Yeah. Just got home, fed my dog Bo. Well, my brother's dog that I'm taking care of for a little while, but
Yeah.
Bo Lee, he's part Australian Shepherd and part Border Collie.
Wow.
Very good, very smart dog, very active. Super smart, so I came in, I work an hour from here. I got off at 7, so we recorded 8. So I come home, did the whole fed the dog, got me some hot tea for my throat to make sure I can talk because I talk all day, and then did the Superman thing, changed clothes real quick in the phone booth, and then come here and get ready for you guys. So I did.
We'll just start calling you Clark Kent.
Well, my glasses broke today, so no longer. Sorry, guys. Clark Kent no longer has his glasses, so I have to perform a Superman.
Okay, all right. Hey,
Everybody
we'll take
like,
Superman.
Superman? You're not Ryan?
We will take Superman. Yeah. We will. Okay, well, if we're ready to get started, I'm kind of sad to see September Spectacular come to an end, but we have a great way to wrap it up. I
feel like we have so many new friends.
We do. Oh my gosh.
It makes my heart happy.
I know, me too. Well, another new friend that Ryan met at Horror Fest, or Smoky Mountain Horror, that's what it was. Her name is Marie LeStrange, and I'm going to do a little introduction, and then we're going to bring her in for all our listeners to meet and our viewers. She writes historical horror, and her newest book is titled Crimson Cobblestones, and we're going to talk about that. But she is also an artist, a musician, a special educator with a particular interest in history. She draws outrageous ABC books for adults and interviews indie horror authors on her podcast called Moths to the Flame. She serves as the chairman of the Horror Writers Association Tennessee chapter and CEO of CCM Sinister Society. And that is, what a bio. She's very interesting. And accomplished. And we cannot wait for you to meet her. And we have all kinds of questions that we're going to ask. So let's bring Marie in to meet our listeners. Hi, Marie.
I almost wish we had like an applause track,
I know, me too. We need one.
Here she comes.
Be your support.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, and thank you for coming on the podcast. I know that you are our we're going out with a bang for our September Spectacular. Sure. And so we are so glad you're here, and we can't wait to learn more about you and your books and all your interests. I've already
having me.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming. I know that just like everybody else, life's busy. Everybody's, running everywhere. And thank you for making time to talk with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you before we get into other questions, because I know Ryan and Lindsay have some too. I wanted to ask you where you were born and raised. Was it in the Appalachian region as well?
My life story continues to, it just branches out everywhere. So I was actually born in Wiesbaden, Germany. And my parents met in the military. And so we lived all around the world until I was almost 10 years old. And when both of my parents were in Air Force intelligence, and we lived in DC, we lived in Japan, we lived in Italy. I was born in Germany. I had been to 15 countries before I was 10 years old. So I'm an avid traveler because of that kind of that wanderlust in me. And my husband too. My husband and I met on a flight to Germany. So that's yeah. And so anyway, we moved to Tennessee right around that 9-10 years old age. And because my mom is from here. And so since we'd been all over the world, they wanted to have this nice, safe, settled, small town, home cooking experience. And so that I lived in a little tiny town called Wartburg, Tennessee for many, many years. So, yeah. Okay. And now I love East Tennessee. I love living here. The fresh air and the mountains, and we're so close to, it's like 6 hours to the beach, but you can also go other places. And we travel so much that it is nice to have that kind of grounded home to come back to.
Yes. Awesome. And your husband, he's so, I was looking at your Instagram and he seems very supportive. And so he's an author too. And you all have collaborated on some things.
We have. I always like to say he's a more talented writer than I am. I mean, he really has a gift with words. I have to work at it because I came from an academic background. I have a PhD. And so academic research writing was my first adventure with writing. He is a natural with fiction writing for sure.
Wow. Okay. Have you always enjoyed writing?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Any type of creative anything. I'm always there. I love it.
Okay. Wow. Well, before I hand some questions over to Ryan and Lindsay, I wanted to ask what sparked your interest in the strange and bizarre and paranormal, as well as writing about it?
Yes. So I am a late bloomer when it comes to spooky paranormal horror specifically. I was raised in very steeped in religion and kind of a closed-minded, not very open to a lot of ideas type. I mean, that comes with being raised in the South too, I think. And so, essentially raised in the South. And so I would have to try to sneak over to the witchcraft section in Barnes and Noble. I was always like on the peripheral, like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. It wasn't as far as I wasn't allowed to read like Harry Potter. I was, but there was no any watching of The Exorcist or scary stuff. It was that brings the devil into the home. That was what I was told. And it was like, you don't do it. And so I was major terrified. Yeah. Like I was, well, I guess this must be hell that I'm living in because we got it all over around here. And so I was super scared of horror, even to the point where I remember, going into my husband's apartment for the first time, I was like 19, 20 years old. And he had all these scary movies. And I was like, that is terrible. Why would you want to cloud your brain with that? Like, I was not it. Not it. And I got true crime was my segue. And so I got further into true crime. And then, of course, you end up on darker corners of the internet and Reddit and all these things. And I was like, oh, my gosh, wait a minute. I've always been drawn to this Salem witch trials, witchy kind of vibe. History, too, was just a fantastic. I love studying about cults and occultish practices. And not that I'm trying to do them. Like, I'm fascinated. You know what I mean?
It's interesting.
Yeah. It's so fascinating. And so that became a segue into learning how to really handle my own psychological traumas from religion and my own mental health. And I use horror as a way to work through my own anxiety. And so I have chronic anxiety. And I mean, obviously I do a lot of things in life all the time. And so I find having that controlled environment where I'm able to have that narrative either in that safe setting of watching a movie and you're able to still work through anxiety, but know that you're not in real danger. It's really a fascinating psychological experience for me. So I love it. I have such an intimate relationship with fear. I'm afraid of a lot of things. And so I most of all chickens. I cannot with a chicken for sure. Living in the South is a hard time for me.
Okay. Look at Ryan's face.
So that's where we come from. It's newer to horror, but I'm filling in the gaps. So
that is interesting what you said about being fearful, but working through your anxiety about like watching a scary movie, knowing you're in a safe environment, or reading a book, a horror novel. I wonder how many people approach horror like that, but they don't even realize it. That's
thankfully a lot of research. Scientists have actually been researching the impact of different genres on the brain recently, and my nerd's coming out, but it's fascinating. I encourage you all to go read about it, because it truly, they will hook up monitors and then have people watch horror films and read horror movies and same thing, just to see what it activates in the brain, and it's fascinating.
Oh wow, yeah.
I never thought about that. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up.
It's worth a Google.
Okay, so I have to hear about your book.
Yes.
I'm so intrigued. I was reading about it. I haven't ordered it yet. I'm going to. Yes. And I just am so intrigued because it's so horror / history and Ben Franklin. And I was like, I don't think I've ever read a fiction book about Ben Franklin, and this one sounds very interesting.
Yes.
So please just tell us everything. Tell us all
Absolutely. So I read an article a few years ago where they were talking about Benjamin Franklin, how in 1999, they were excavating his London home on Carver Street. And guess what they found? 19 skeletons. So, of course, everyone is like, oh, anatomy research. And the man who lived with him at the time was doing this. They were trying to study the body because that was, historically accurate for the time. There weren't medical facilities where people donated their bodies to science. Like, it didn't happen. Grave robbers were a cornerstone of medical research at the time. We wouldn't know as much about anatomy without it. And so someone that that lived actually with him at the time, and his wife lived with him at the time. And then when that man disappeared, that wife moved to America with Benjamin Franklin. Side note. So I read that article and I started looking into this further, and I was like, wait a minute, old Benny was a bad boy. He was, and this is true, like the amount of things that I took from real history and from his actual life story and then weaved into a narrative. I found out that he was a member of the Hellfire Club, and the Hellfire Club was
I did know.
So a high society. Well, then you're going to love this because that high society group of they would do kind of like a mock mass, and they would hire prostitutes to dress as nuns and all these things. He was a member. The founder of the Hellfire Club, Sir Francis Dashwood, is my ancestor.
No way!
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
It's wild. It's wild.
You heard it here first, guys.
That is so cool.
So it I had to continue going down the rabbit hole of information. I just intended to write a story about Benjamin Franklin as a serial killer. And then as I started unpacking more and more and more of his life, I was like, whoa, there's so much here that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So that's what drove the narrative of Crimson Cobblestones.
Oh,
so it's a dark romance, gothic, kind of whodunit mystery with cults and serial killing and lots and lots and lots of historical breadcrumbs throughout the whole narrative. So a lot that I'm very public about, and I actually have a list in the back of the book that talks about all of the comparisons with Benjamin Franklin's real life, and then how I included that in the book. Kind of like the first scene opens up in a library. Well, he's the one that founded the first library in Philadelphia. There are all these different things. Every flower that's mentioned in the book correlates with the Victorian language of the flowers, because that's how lovers would communicate in those times. And so it's a nuanced horror, if there ever was one.
Okay, now who would play Ben? in the movie?
Woo! You know, I don't know the man's name. So, but the guy that plays Lucifer in the TV series, like where he's like kind of suave and you know,
We're
like a
going for a hot
skinnier Henry Cavill because I just love him.
So we're going for like a really hot Ben Franklin.
Yeah, this is not, I always say this is not the like white haired wig. This is a younger, sexy, very mysterious, kind of like Christian Grey vibes, Benjamin Franklin. So
That would be Tom Ellis plays Lucifer in the Lucifer series.
Okay.
So it'd be Tom Ellis.
I like a younger him. But yeah, definitely that kind of dark, smoldering vibe for sure.
I feel like it's just going down the list and checking all of the boxes of things that I want in a book. You know?
I feel like it's going to be a movie someday.
I didn't know that I wanted.
I believe that in my soul that it will. Yes. I think it's made for film. I really do.
I've not even read it yet, and I'm like, write a screenplay, somebody, because this
we're putting it in the universe.
Well, I'll tell you.
I'd be into it, but I'm like,
I don't know if you guys are musical theater fans.
Yes,
but I'm also a musician. I play 8 musical instruments.
Wow.
So I love all. I told you all creative things. I'm there for it. So I have actually composed around 30 songs that I am adapting the book into a musical theater.
Yes,
a play. So that's the next step. Awesome. I'm excited.
Okay, my next question is just like, where do you find the time and energy?
I do not. You can ask any of my friends. Well, number one, I have ADHD, so that helps. Okay, I'm like all over the place. But you can ask anyone in my life. I function on about 3 hours of sleep, and that's that. So when my son goes to sleep at 9 o'clock, then my husband and we don't watch TV. That's also a big thing. I mean, it's not that I'm opposed to it. I just don't have time. So if you took out all of the time that you were devoting to TV and put that into a creative effort, you would be able to do the same amount of things that I do. Like, I don't watch TV. So that's that.
You know, you're so right, because I can't tell you. I'm like really into the X-Files right now.
Oh, that's good.
As you're saying that, I'm like, how many hours?
How many hours
have I devoted to the X-Files?
How many hours? Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, I mean, I know this might come as a surprise to many of my readers that are watching this podcast, and I don't want to disappoint you guys, but I am a devout, and I have seen every episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So and I will watch that one, but that's the only one that I pretty much
Everybody has their rights.
I don't think I've ever watched a full episode of that.
Oh, I've seen every single one. I love them. I just love them. I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
And see, that's my big, when I'm in marketing and I tell people, I'm like, look, why wouldn't you do this? I said, you spend 2 hours just playing on your phone a day, or, you know, people spend that much time just playing on their phones. I said, why would you not use this time to benefit yourself, to make some money, or learn something?
It's just a side hustle. Do something interesting. Yeah.
Now I have to ask too. How smutty does the Crimson Cobblestone book get? Like on a scale of 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10.
Well, as far as amount of smut in the book, there's only like 3 scenes, maybe.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was 2 or 3, but those scenes are a lot. So, I mean, this is a book that like I won't sell it to people that are under 18 at conferences, just because I know what content is in there as far as like horror, death, murder, and then the smut aspect as well. And then you also have to think this is a gothic horror. So if you start thinking about some of the gothic horror tropes and conventions that usually go into a gothic narrative, there are things that I don't feel comfortable selling that to somebody that's a minor.
Right.
So,
yeah. Oh, I've got to read this.
Oh yeah. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah.
It's on
we're
my
going to
list
read
now.
it, definitely. Now,
Maybe we need to broadcast this episode like after midnight or something like when we drop it.
Yes.
so you're saying not fit for prime time.
Do you want me to put like a explicit thing, like a little explicit tag on the thumbnail?
Listen, my own podcast that I do, I list almost every episode as explicit solely because we curse a lot, and like the topics, when you have a mortician on your show, it's not suitable for children. Like, it's just not.
Right.
That's so cool.
Thanks.
My other question that I wanted to ask you, so I know you're an artist. Do you have any works being produced right now? Like, do you have anything in the works that you're working on?
Oh, yes. So I am a member of the Tennessee Artists Association, very newly. And I used to have an art business where I would teach art classes and a lot of just a floral type design. I do, now my focus is, instead of the impasto and oil painting that I was doing, I'm very hardcore into 3D high relief work. And so I'm doing my base acrylic painting, and then I am creating like clay kind of sculptures and incorporating that onto the canvas, which has been a super fun experiment. And then doing my final painting on top of that. And so then I have this nice 3D element, kind of a mixed media approach. Awesome. Yeah. So I work actually displayed at the Rose Center in Morristown right now. And in October, I will have some of my newest spooky high relief work will be on display at the Frothy Monkey in Knoxville. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Because I was on your Instagram and I was scrolling, and I think I saw one of the pieces that you were talking about, and it's so cool how you take like a flat surface, but it's like something's coming out of it. It's amazing. It's one of the coolest things. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I come in from a fellow artist. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. It's so cool. I wish I had more time in the day to like devote to that kind of stuff. But it's almost like, and you probably know this because you were a teacher too, it's like when you come home, you gotta decompress.
You gotta veg. You gotta have your decompression.
I gotta veg.
And I started using art as my decompression. So I would put headphones on, and I love to blare music. Music is such an extrasensory experience for me that I just like the way that it flows through my brain. And so then as I'm creating art while I'm listening to music, it's just a whole decompression vibe for me. I really love it. Yeah.
Now, are you going to do Inktober this year? Do you know about Inktober?
That is the tattoo convention, I believe, right?
Well, I don't know if they do tattoos, but it's like an art account. I just have Instagram. I'm sure it's also.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with this. No.
And Inktober, I found it a few years ago. I've not done it in a couple years, but they come out with a huge list. There's a different drawing prompt for every single day, and it's always very like spooky, kind of vague, so you can interpret it however you want. And like a bunch of people do it, and they'll post their art on Instagram and tag it. And the ideas and the talent that comes from this is amazing.
Oh, I bet.
If you have, I kind of think I'm going to do it again this year.
I think I'm going to do it too. That sounds fun.
Look into it. I think the list is already out.
Okay.
It's just very cool and very fun. I think it'll be a fun way for me to get back into it. I've kind of taken pause for a little bit.
Yes.
So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and I love those flash opportunities too, because then it's like you're just like, one day, quick and dirty little art piece. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this as you were talking, Lindsay. When you did Inktober, you did like a crystal ball one, and when we were talking about our logo last year, and she designed our logo. We were like, wouldn't it be cool if we could have like sirens in a crystal ball like you drew like for Inktober that year?
Yeah, and that was a while back, but it's just fun stuff like that. I think that prompt was like crystal or something, so you could take it a million different ways.
Yes,
it's just so fun. So I'm excited about that.
I love that.
You should if you want to, you should, but I think it could be cool.
I think I might. Well, and I could
Yeah.
do pre-made book covers that way. I have a friend
Yeah.
who also is a book cover designer. We both do a lot of graphic design work too. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
art all the time, all mediums.
All of it, yeah.
And so the other day we played a game where she sent me a message and she said, "Okay, give me a one-word prompt, and then we'll do book covers on them and see how we interpret them different." You know,
that's cool.
And so I said delicious. And both, of course, horror themed.
Yeah.
And then we both spent 1 hour creating a book cover, like a pre-made book cover, of our interpretation of a horror story titled Delicious. And it was so cool to see the difference in the two art pieces.
Awesome.
So I'm thinking for October or Inktober, that would be really cool to do. Like, I could do graphic design and do pre-made book covers that way. That would be really cool.
Absolutely. I think it started out as just like when I was doing it a few years ago, there were a lot of people that were like, no, it has to be pen and ink and it has to be this and that. But I think just do what you want with it. Like, as long as you're making something, who cares? You know?
Yeah, I'm not one to care. So
yeah, just
whatever interpretation works for me.
Whatever makes
great.
you happy. Yeah. But it's really cool to get on there and see what everybody's made that day. I love
I'm gonna go scope it out. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yes, please do.
And before we let Ryan get a word in here, I have to ask you, Marie, what is your zodiac sign?
Gemini.
I knew it.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like it emanates from me.
Yeah. I have worked for 2 Geminis, okay? And I have known them to be some of the most creative people who have the biggest ideas. And but see, I'm the one who has to like get all the details, you know, and make those
we're
ideas
big idea people. Yeah, we're like, everything will fall into place. We'll get there. It's okay. You know,
exactly.
I have to tell people that work close with me, I'm like, guys, you just gotta, the scatterness, trust me, it will get there. The end result will be great. Just trust the vision. Trust the vision.
Yes.
We'll get there.
Isn't
Exactly.
it so funny how, like, because I'm an Aquarius, so I'm also an air sign. And it always makes me laugh how every single air sign that I know is so artsy and creative.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter who they are, like where they came from. They're just creative people. And I just think that's really interesting.
Well, I was about to say, my husband is an Aquarius. And so we get, get that.
That's awesome.
Just an air sign coven. I love it.
Definitely.
Okay, Ryan.
Ryan, we're gonna
shut up and let you ask the question.
Oh, I'm
time for Ryan to ask all the. He's ready to ask smut questions, right?
He comes at things from a different perspective, which is great for us. You know, it's great having our male siren rep, you know, on the team.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh-oh.
Oh, are we frozen?
Oh, no.
Did we lose
him? But he looks so happy in his
He does. That's a good friend. That's a good friend.
He does. He looks like
there he
is.
is.
Okay.
There you go. You're back. We lost you for a minute.
Yeah, it's been freezing up all night. It's like really weird. The connection's different or something. I'm not sure what's going on. So I don't know if you heard my question. You have a lot of different things going on. Do you like just work on one thing at a time, or do you just like assign certain things, certain amount of time per day, or how do you work on them?
So my 33 years of life up until this point have been just complete chaos, whatever strikes me at that moment. Or I am a super procrastinator because of my neurodivergencies. And so then that pressure would, you know, put the pedal to the metal and I have to get it done. But as very recently, I've been very intensely researching and trying to study how to adapt my habits and my skills and my lifestyle to fit the needs of my ADHD brain. And so I have started using something called time blocking. And I'm very meticulous about using my calendar. If it does not exist on my calendar, whether virtually or my handwritten calendar that I have, then it doesn't exist to me. Like, it does not happen for me, right? I had to set an alarm to remember to do this podcast. Like, that's how my life goes. And so now I kind of segment my days based on time blocking. So I'll say, okay, from 8 to 9 is getting my son ready and getting him to school. And then 9 to 10 is art time. 10 to 11 is such and such time. Usually it's cleaning, and then 11 to 12 is writing. And so I'm using my day and compartmentalizing it. And you heard me say earlier, when my son goes to bed at 9, then it's time for my husband and I for creative time. Like it's a very like, I know that if I can't get to something in the morning or during my creative time, I have another block in the evening where I'm able to attack that. A lot of times I get off task and I go down the rabbit hole and I start doing other things, but I recently have been very intentional about trying to block that time out. So I encourage anyone that is also neurodivergent, has traits of autism, ADHD, all the fun things we're dealing with over here, look into time blocking and gamification, because those two methods really, really help. I will set a timer for 30 minutes and I'll say, okay, how much can I get finished? How many words can I write in 30 minutes? How much can I format? Whatever I can do in 30 minutes. And something about having that time restriction makes it into a game. And you stay on task, and I won't open other tabs, and I won't go do all the other things that are exciting. I'm like, I will stick to this task for 30 minutes. So that's how I manage it.
Tough. That sounds tougher than one would think.
Oh, yes. Yes. But it's very helpful for sure.
Yeah, because then it kind of like makes it into a little game, and it's more motivational, and it's challenging yourself is always kind of fun, I think.
Yeah, I'm all about rewards. Do you like say, I'm going to reward myself with this if I complete this task? Or
Yes. And I will. So 2 things. I have a little task tracker on my iPad that you put your to-do list in there. And this sounds so rudimentary and ridiculous, but I'm telling you, it does something in my brain that just like rubs it the right way. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you get to like slide it off the screen when you're done with your task, and then it makes the most fantastic little ding like sound. And it's like a little reward. I love it. But I also will say to myself, I'm like, okay, if I will clean, I'll fold laundry for 20 minutes or whatever, then I will reward myself with 10 minutes of playing the piano or something that I get a lot of joy out of that, and so I do have to, I know that sounds kind of very intense for me,
it makes
but it works for
me.
Me.
Smart is what it sounds like.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
And that you're like finding those things that work for you and helping you be productive. That's awesome. And it's inspiring to other people. I mean, I can't tell you, how many days that I wish I had been more like that.
Right. Well, and you get to the point when I think taking on so many different things, and I spent 14 years as a special ed teacher, and so I had to all of thinking of the different schedules and the different students and different grade levels and different abilities and behaviors and all these things all of the time. It really helps me manage in my own life now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that is really interesting. Now, I want to ask you, we lost Ryan. He'll be back, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
I'm watching for him. If he pops back up, I'll add him in.
Okay.
His poor internet.
I know, his poor internet. Marie, do you get all your inspiration for your books from history, or any of them based on like personal experience, or, I mean, not
all of the serial killer books are definitely personal experience. Yeah, I'm a super criminal behind the scenes. And
that question did not come out right. I mean, like your romance with your husband I'm sure that's inspired you in your book.
Definitely. And I like to joke about in our Smut books, especially, people are like, how did you come up with this? And I'm like, oh, just, research, honey. It's just research. Like, it is. I think anything in life can inspire writing. I will hear a phrase, and my notes app on my phone is literally like an insane asylum. It is a string of words and phrases and things that just have given me inspiration. And I'll go back and I'll look up and I'll be like, bury me. What was I talking about there? It's so interesting. But any song or phrase or just an experience or a picture, I'm very visually driven too. And so then I'll be like, ooh, that inspires something else. And then the research is what helps me craft the narrative. So I find inspiration everywhere, but then I will say going into the research and finding those little details like about the Victorian language of the flowers, or learning that Benjamin Franklin's aunt was involved in the Salem witch trials, like that type of stuff helps drive my narrative for sure.
That's great. Where I was actually going with that question before I stuck my foot in my mouth, so was I was going to ask you, have you yourself had any like paranormal or supernatural experiences that have inspired you too?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. We are, and I encourage everyone to listen to one of the earlier episodes of my podcast. The sound quality is garbage, but listen to the one with the medium on there, because we started talking about the ghostie that lives in the upper floor of my house. And then there was a phone. It happened live on the podcast. A phone started ringing. None of our phones were going off. Anyone on the podcast, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is ghosty communicating with us right now. And we've had lots of experiences in my home is not that old. I mean, it's only like a 25-year-old home, and we have had many experiences that let me know that we are not alone here, and that's okay. We're amicable. We've had some when my son was a little when he was a lot younger, actually, he would start saying some things like, Mommy, do you see the black dripping from the ceiling? And, you know, kids can be creepy anyway, but like he would say things that I would be like, we got to get some sage. Like I got to do this. So yeah, we have had many an experience in this house specifically. And then as a child, I had a couple of paranormal encounters. I would not say that I have ever seen a ghost. I would love to. I don't know how I would react. And I go on every ghost hunting tour. I do all of it. I'm like, I'm trying. I'm going to all the haunted houses, all the places. Like we went to the Whaley House in California this summer. You know, like we try to go to the most haunted locations, and I never feel or see anything. And I'm a very like feelings driven person. I'm very sensitive and in tune with things like that. And there've only been a couple of places, like at the Bell Witch Cave in Adams, Tennessee. Have you ever been there?
No, that's our bucket list.
On the list.
Dark, heavy energy there. And then I think at Brushy Mountain Prison in one of the D block that used to be one of the more intensive places, that's a pretty heavy place too.
I was just there. The first time, and I told Lindsay, I said, Lindsay and I have spent the night in Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. We've done all kinds of stuff. But I told her, I was like, that place, and I was there in the middle of a sunshiny day.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I got separated from my family group that I was with, and I was just wandering around on my own, you know, and it gave off such a heavy, creepy, spooky vibe, more so even than the Trans-Allegheny in the middle of the night.
Yep. There's something, it's just the pain and the hardship that has been there. And now granted, I live 20 minutes from there. And so I have grown up knowing people that worked there, that were incarcerated there, that like, you know, and so hearing some of those stories, and it's just been something that it's been a presence in my life for a very long time. But being there on property, even like I love the little restaurant, I love the little moonshine distillery that they're doing there, but there are heavy vibes for sure. Very heavy.
Definitely. Do you care to do you want to share either of the experiences that you had as a child, or is that something you wouldn't feel comfortable talking about?
Oh no, I will. That's fine. I like in retrospect, I've wondered if the ghostie of our home is not just a presence that has potentially been following me. I'm not sure, because as a child, I felt like it was more malicious, and then as an adult, I feel we're amicable and everything's chill now. You know, we really had to have. I feel like we had to have a we did go through our home and with sage and tried to exercise the negative energies and smoke cleanse and all the things. I was like, we got to do something. So when I was, I used to have really intensive night terrors as a kid. And I have vivid, very detailed, very memorable dreams. And I always have. And that's just been part of that. I really think it's part of that neurodivergent brain of mine. So anything at night has always been elevated for me. You know, waking up in the middle of the night, having dreams or nightmares or anything like that, it's always just been a more intensified experience. And I was so sure as I could be sure that I would wake up and I would see a woman next to my bed that had a green tinged face, and I just felt such evil and maliciousness emanating from her that and as I'm talking about it right now, I don't feel that same energy from Ghosty. So I don't feel like that is the same, but it used to terrify me as a child. Absolutely terrify me. Yeah.
So this happened on numerous occasions.
Yeah. It was always a nighttime thing. And I would have these nightmares that were so vivid, and they would take things, from my actual life and like people that I would know, or they would hurt, and it would absolutely just traumatize my little gentle soul, And so
terrifying.
it was really horrible. And so then I'd wake up. Thank God I have never experienced any like sleep paralysis or anything like that. I don't think I could handle that, but I have definitely experienced the seeing something next to my bed and feeling so shocked and uncomfortable, and then like blinking and then it's gone, So, but then that energy is still heavy with you. And that's when I really started to learn about and experience and understand what anxiety was in my body, because I felt it from those night terrors. And that was rough. It was a rough time for sure. It's probably why I function on such little sleep now. I don't have nightmares anymore.
Yeah, probably.
I'm exposed to such darkness now. But I think it has something to do with that controlled narrative. Like I don't,
Yeah. Gosh, that's so interesting.
That is, we did
specific visual in your mind too, what that was.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm very intentional, and I try to research, and I'm a very analytical person too. So, I put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah.
We did an episode, I think it was in our first season, about it was actually a 2-part episode about sleep paralysis and night terrors, and I've never had either, and it just shook me.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
So I'm glad that you're not experiencing those things now.
I will say this. I just remembered. We have a story. I wrote a story, and oh God, I can't even. Do you remember the name of it, honey? The shared dreaming experience.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Breath. Oh yes. Banquet of the Breathless is a short story that I wrote that. The majority of that story is 100% true. Like my husband and I, this was prior to our son being born. This was probably 8 or 9 years ago at this point. We had a shared dreaming experience, like a shared nightmare, where we both woke up and we were like, what just happened? And it was horrible. And like, I have goosebumps. Like it made me so uncomfortable then. It makes me uncomfortable now. Like that was a terrifying experience for us to both wake up. And in the dream, my husband had transformed into a Wendigo and had slaughtered my whole family. And so we both woke up and he was on all fours in our bed and like growling. And it was when he woke up and we were both like, oh my God, we were so unsettled at that point.
Yeah.
It was really unsettling.
How long did it take you to realize you were having the same nightmare?
Well, we didn't at first. When we both woke up, I was like, oh my God, I just had the worst nightmare. And he on all four growling and like scary. And he was like, oh my God, me too. And so then he would say a couple of details. And then we were like, oh my God, we had the same dream. Like we literally had the same dream. And it was unlike anything else I've ever experienced in a not Yeah, like I love a good spooky moment, and I love but that, like, I felt
That's intense.
when you, especially when you're asleep, you feel so vulnerable, and I
Yes.
felt so like I violated by my
Yes.
own mental, like I just felt so, I didn't like it. So we were very uncomfortable. Thank God that has not happened to us since. But
Yes,
Well,
and
and it
what
kind of
when
makes
you
me
wrote
wonder.
it down as a story, was that cathartic?
oh yeah, again, that was part of that therapeutic controlling the narrative. So then I take it further in the story to make it where they wake up and there's like physical signs and all that part didn't happen in real life. Everything until the wake up point absolutely happened though.
Wow.
And I think people think that's a fictional story. I'm like, no, this is real. This actually happened in our brains. So
Now,
yeah.
which of your books is that in?
That actually is just a short story that I use as a little incentive for people to sign up for my newsletter. And so I give that story away for free. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just like it blows my mind how did your brain know that his brain was also doing the same thing? Like how can brains connect like that?
I honestly I mean, you guys are supernatural, spooky time. I encourage you to look into like astral projection and kind of that. I really think when you go into a dream state, and I kind of equate it to the same thing as like when people talk about the afterlife and talking about different planes of existence. And, I'm always open to any discussion about any of that. Like I'm always interested to see what other people think. And I really feel like something psychologically, I don't know if it was just because we were right there laying in the same bed and we're married, we're connected. We feel so like spiritually, emotionally, physically, everything connected, I feel like we were both in that same dream headspace. I don't know. It was like anything I've ever experienced in my life. And it was terrifying.
That is so wild.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that that's in the past.
Way in the past. Yeah. I'll have one tonight. I'll be like,
no,
no, we won't talk about it anymore. We won't.
Like, damn it, those sirens are supernatural.
Yes, I'll be like, Asha, why did I talk about it? I brought it into existence. I manifested it. Damn.
Well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about when did you publish your first book, and how many books are out there now?
Oh boy. Well, my very first was an experiment called T is for Torture.
Ooh.
This is an illustrated ABC book, not for kids. It's dark humor.
Wow.
It's meant to be dark humor. It's like the Go the F to Sleep book by Adam Montauk. It's like that. But so I illustrated this book. And you can see my little character. There's me, little LeStrange. And so I wanted to see what the publishing process was like, because we were thick in the querying trenches and seeking a literary agent at the time. And I just thought, you know what, this would be a really fun way to find out what publishing is like and for what it's like on the back end, And so instead of, and I research, of course, and we have lots of friends in publishing and, but I thought I want to do this for myself. So that was the first one. And the second one that came out in that series is S is for Serial Killers.
Ooh.
This is the one that I had seen that I was telling you about, Mom.
Yeah. Okay.
S is for Serial Killers.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So, and it's not, I make fun of all of the serial killers throughout the book, but there are poems and little illustrations that describe, and it's informational and it's educational, but it also I'm like making fun of the terrible people that they are. That's not to be, I feel like you have to recognize that, and we're not trying to give them a platform or further romanticize what they did, but it is super fascinating to understand the psychological.
It is.
So I'm a big true crimer for that reason. So those were the first two that I published. And then Crimson came out in June. I feel like it's been out for years and years, but it came out in June of this year. And we also fell into running a small publishing press where we publish an anthology every single month. And this is the Sinister Society.
Okay.
We were a part of another group that had they were doing stories every 3 to 4 weeks, and it started to fall apart, and everyone was like, what are we going to do? We love this idea. We love doing the themed stories every week. And so, or they liked writing the stories. And I said, well, if I'm going to take this over, we're going to have a theme. We're going to do it once a month, and we're going to publish it as a real book with ISBN and the whole nine. And then we will either pay for first rights for authors that want to submit. So I pay them just to be the first one to print it, and then they can take that story elsewhere and they can include it in any of their works. They can submit it to other markets. They can do whatever they want with it. I just pay them for first rights. And then we have a little collective, a little core group of us, the OG Sinister Society, and we all have a running daily chat where we talk and we brainstorm and inspire each other and write together. And they receive royalties from those books. So that takes up a lot of my time now, but I really enjoy it. And it's a fun way to get an experience of a lot of different writers and their writing styles without having to commit to an entire novel. So you get to just read little short stories by all of us. And that's super fun. So we've done Nautical Nightmares, which was a sea themed book. I'm looking at my bookshelf that's next to me, seeing if I have any within reach. We did Hallowed Horrors, a Halloween themed one when it was halfway to Halloween. We've done Fairy Tale Fuckery, which was all like fucked up fairy tales and twisted narratives, which was fun. And we've done a sword and sorcery fantasy called Dead Wizards Never Die. And then we have a very naughty, very terrible Scream and Cream coming out in about a week. And it's a splatter punk erotica. It is a mess. And it is
I'm so glad Ryan wasn't on here.
Like, where's Ryan? He's screaming.
I know, he's missing the best part.
He is. Like, I need to send him just the cover of that book will be enough to traumatize him. Like, it's
he would be blushing right now.
I
think it's great.
It's be the absolute color of your hair right now.
Yeah,
he would not know what to do.
Oh my god, poor Ryan. We're just giving him a hard time.
I know.
Well, and that is a great segue into your book called Smuttin'. Will you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we got to talk about that one.
Listen, greatest piece of high literary quality right here. This is a master classic, okay? So,
I love it.
My husband and I thought it would be funny to write a smut book. And so it was I cannot tell you, the most fun experience I have ever had writing a book ever. I love my novels. I love the serious, historical, all the things. We wrote Smuttin' in 3 days. It was so funny because we were trading chapters back and forth. And so we like to follow the potato chip. I call it the potato chip chapter policy, where you write like 1,000, 1,500 words, because it's like a potato chip. People just want to read one more. They just want to read one more. They want to read one more. So it helps the narrative of a book move really fast. You're able to do a lot more. Yeah. And so he would write a chapter. I would write a chapter in response. And then he would read that, respond. We didn't talk about where the plot was going. And so it was just us trying to outdo each other and become more insane as the narrative goes. So, I mean, by the end, there's a granny with a shotgun. Jesus and Satan both make an appearance. Like, it is absolutely unhinged in the best of ways. And we
cannot wait to read this.
Love it.
I know.
And if you're Christmas smut fans, you guys will get an exclusive. We have not actually spoke about this publicly. We've talked about it at conventions, but we have a little novelette coming out, which is it's a a MILF and Krampus and like a daddy Santa vibe.
Okay.
So here's the great question though, because we haven't decided on a title yet. We have two options. So you all weigh in since you're smut fan.
Right.
MILF and cookies or coming down her chimney tonight.
Listen,
I feel like
I like both.
I know.
Yeah. MILF and cookies.
I know.
MILF and cookies.
I'll wait.
That's iconic.
Yes. That's mine. You hear that, honey? That one's mine. I like that one the best.
Yes, I do. And we love some
honestly want
Krampus.
that on a shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So you just wait for that one because it's coming soon. Ha ha ha. Unintended. Yeah.
Before Christmas.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
We haven't decided. It's one of those, like when we put Smutton, I thought it would be hilarious to submit Smutton to a publisher and not tell my husband about it. Because then I thought, won't it be hilarious when I can drop a book deal in his lap and say, look what is getting published right now. And I never in a million trillion years thought that anyone would pick Smutton up. And then when they did, I was like, oh no, people are going to read this. And then there was a major falling out with that publisher. They ended up closing. And so I say falling out in that they fell out with the whole world, not just us. They were not good. And so, but then everybody already knew about the book. And so I was like, well, I guess we're going to have to release it. Like, might as well. And I like to call it the little book that could, and my husband calls it the little book that never should. It never should have been, but it is, and people love it. They love to read it. It is such a fun time, and it's just completely unhinged. You have to just look at it as totally unhinged.
Yeah.
Good.
What a fun approach. I love that you guys are that couple that can do that. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
That would have turned out a whole different way if I would have tried to do that with your dad, Lindsay.
She's like, I have to go now.
Now she's embarrassed.
Okay, but listen. We, for like our family's Christmas, we get together on Thanksgiving and we pull names out of a hat, like for Secret Santa.
Yes.
Because we have not a huge family, but like it's a little pricey to get every single person a present.
Yeah, exactly.
How funny would it be?
I know where she's going with it.
If Grandma got my name and the first item on my list was MILF and cookies. She went to order it. Because she wouldn't know what it stands for. But when she went to order it, she would be like,
what is happening? What is happening?
Yeah, she'd be like, I don't feel comfortable buying it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, similar situation has happened with me. I got my grandma a tablet, and so I connected it to all of my Apple Kindle. It was an Amazon Fire tablet. That's what it was. So it's connected to my Kindle account, which it has lots of things on there that grandmas don't need to be reading. Okay.
A little spicy.
Not my grandma anyway. And so I just told her, I was like, Grandma, don't even open this app. Like, don't even go in here. Don't look at what I'm reading. Don't look at any of this. You don't want to be a part of any of it. Okay. Just don't. And I tell her that too. She's like, oh, your books. I'm like, you can't read them, Grandma. I love you. But no.
They're not for you, Grandma.
You are not my target audience, Grandma. It's not for you. Yeah.
But see, if I were the grandma and my granddaughter told me that, the first thing I would do, man, I'd be clicking in there
as soon as that sentence came out. Yeah, I'd be like, don't open this? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thankfully, she is one that likes to protect her peace, and so she does not even venture over into it. Her sister has read all of my books and loves them, so she was allowed to, though. I knew she was a horror fan, so she was.
Oh, okay. That is great. So,
that is
do you have some other irons in the fire as far as books you're thinking of or have already started? Now, we don't want to give any spoiler alerts that you don't want to give, but you're so creative. I cannot imagine that you're not 3 books ahead already in your head.
Well, I already have a couple written, as a matter of fact. It's just decide. I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted to publish them myself, or if I wanted to seek out and submit them elsewhere. And so I have had a couple of offers from boutique presses to publish my 2 of my future novels, but I do love that creative control and being able to, I do custom designs on the inside of all of our books. I try to do artwork. Let's see if I can find.
That's so neat.
So I like to really customize the interior and include a lot of art. And it's something that I now have learned that I will be publishing my own books from now on. I love it so much. So I have 2 books that are coming soon. One you get a little preview of in the back of Crimson Cobblestones, and it is a gender-bent sapphic reimagining of Dorian Gray. With it's a lady Dorian Gray, and there are vampires and reincarnation, and it's just delicious. It's super fun.
And I'm telling you, like, all of these books, I'm like,
yes,
yep.
And then on the historical side of things, I am publishing next year a book currently titled Carving Croatoan, but I think I'm going to change the title to Revenge of Roanoke or something like that. So The Lost Colony of Roanoke and Witches. And you talk about a fun writing experience. I did a lot of primary source research in order to create epistolary pieces, so like diary entries to open up many of the chapters. And so you follow the path of 4 to 5 different characters that are in the colony of Roanoke. One of those characters being, again, I'm about my history and my own genealogy, my 14th great grandfather, so directly descended from, was the governor of Roanoke. So I had to write a story about Roanoke. Like, I had to. So yeah,
That's so cool.
It's really cool. Yeah, it's fun. And that book is like, I love Crimson, and I worked really hard on it, and all of my crit writers and my helpers and everybody that helped edit that book, it would not be the book without them. But man, Roanoke, that's a book. It's a book. It's good.
That's such an interesting story, just on its own. But like bringing in all those other things. Oh, like, I can't wait.
Yeah, I tried to lean into the some of the Appalachian folklore, like the folklore that comes from that area too. And so I lean into the Black-Eyed Children, some of the I am Cherokee Indian, and so I also lean into some of, I mean, the Croatoan tribe, that was a precursor to the Cherokee tribe anyway. So that's, I really try to lean into some of that native influence, but not in a what's the term I'm searching for, like a token stereotypical it's the Native American spirit. It's like, no, it's not like that at all. So very heavily researched, very different type of writing style, but very fun. It's a good one. I'm excited for it to come out. Yeah.
I think that's so cool too, that you have Cherokee heritage. And if Ryan were here, he would tell you, one of the things I neglected to tell you about how we got started when we were talking before we went on air is our great grandmother on our maternal grandmother's side was part Cherokee, and she used to tell us, she told scary stories. She was like 4'11", just this little bitty woman, and but she could tell stories that would make grown men's hair stand on end.
Ooh, how fun!
That's how we got started. So our very first episode, we actually told, about her and a story that she used to tell us. And Lindsay took it and put sound effects to it, and it was awesome. But
Oh, I'll have to go back and watch that. That sounds awesome.
it was a lot of fun. It's still one of my favorite episodes that we've done, is that very first one that tells like kind of how we got into things and why we're so interested in the paranormal. But
yeah, I
but
love
Cherokee,
that.
I mean, that's so awesome.
So we have my granny. I mean, she lived to be 104. And so my great grandmother, and she lived over in Oklahoma. Our family had, from their experience on the Trail of Tears, they ended up over there on the reservation in Oklahoma, and that's where they were. So I know I look very Scandinavian and Dutch because I have a lot of English influence.
Yes.
For sure. I am a card carrying Cherokee, and I grew up, not too far from Cherokee, North Carolina. And so we would try to visit. It was something that my mom especially wanted us to have an understanding of that piece of our history.
Yes.
We came from specifically the Paint Clan, which had a lot of, I don't know how much you know about, but I encourage you to research the Paint Clan with Cherokee. There was a lot of, I had a couple of great aunts that would read tea leaves and kind of like the shaman, mystical healer approach, and very artistic. And so I find that fascinating. I don't talk a lot about my Cherokee heritage just because I feel like it's not my place, because it's not been my lived experience. Like I haven't lived a Native American experience. And so I don't feel like it's appropriate to claim that, you know what I mean? But I'm proud of that thread of my heritage for sure. Yeah,
we totally get that. Okay, so
we're like the whitest people ever also. So it's like,
but that's because
you sure? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to look at my cheekbones. These are Cherokee cheekbones, baby.
Yeah, we had a Scotch Irish grandfather, and all of us kind of look like him. We didn't get those great, that great skin and dark hair.
My sister has it. Oh, beautiful.
My grandmother had it. Yeah. So awesome. I saw a picture of her, I guess when she was maybe 16 or something like that. And she looked like Pocahontas, or, she was just so beautiful with it was just, but anyway, I digress. Tell us and our listeners where we can get your books.
So they are available anywhere that books are sold.
Awesome.
So if you can order them online, you can order them from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart. What really helps me and what helps all indie authors, regardless of the genre, if you go into a bookstore and they aren't carrying that book, I do have locally in the Knoxville, Bristol, Sevierville area, we have quite a few stores that have picked up the books, and I super appreciate all of them that are carrying it. But if they don't have it, or a library doesn't have it, if you request for them to order it, that's a huge boon for indie specifically, because we have to work to get our book on the shelves in brick and mortar stores. The best place to get books from me is when I'm at a conference, because then you sign it and it's a whole affair. We have a big time. I love selling books at conferences, and I'm always happy if someone contacts me directly on my my website. I have a store at crimsoncultbooks.com. You can order signed copies of the novels, but if you want to get it quickly, they're available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever. So
and what did you say the website was? No.
crimsoncultbooks.com.
Crimson Cult.
She's like going there right now.
Yes.
My notes app.
Yes. In your notes app, also put down, I have a link tree where we talk about, we have an upcoming Kickstarter project where my husband and I, y'all are going to love this. We are planning on buying and renovating a bus, and we're going to make it the Spooky Book Bus.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And then travel around.
That is great.
A little store with taxidermy and horror books
That
and
is so cool.
true crime merchandise and
like all your artwork. You have to like paint it on the outside and make it amazing. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
We want it to look like a Victorian, like death hearse carriage thing.
Now, when
vibe.
you
Oh
get
my
this
God.
finished, you're gonna put it on like your website and your socials and all, so that
All
people.
of it, yeah, for
Okay.
sure. For sure.
That's
So
so
that we're
cool.
gonna launch a Kickstarter project. We were going to do that for October, but I'm feeling rushed with it, and I really don't want to rush this project. So I think we're gonna wait for the spring on that. But all of our socials, we're heavily active on Facebook, TikTok. I have a big time over on the TikTok, you know. And I'm not as good about Instagram, and I need to be better. But everything, you can find all of our links if you go to Linktree/LeStrange books.
Okay.
So it's link.tr. I don't remember how they split it up. It's some weird way.
Yeah,
I
it
think
is. Yeah.
it's tr.ee or something.
Yeah.
But Linktree / LeStrange, LeStrange books.
Okay.
And you can find all of our hilarity and horror at all times.
And we're gonna link everything like
Yeah, we
on
will.
the show
Definitely.
notes, so we'll have all
Yeah.
the links and everything.
And so,
Awesome.
yes, we definitely want our listeners to know that. And we do want to inform them a little bit about your podcast. Tell us a little bit about Moths to the Flame.
Oh, Moss to the Flame. Yes. So we typically have filmed on Tuesday evenings. I go live and we'll broadcast that to YouTube, on all of the Facebook channels. We have a Facebook group called the Crimson Cult, and that's for, you know, our close-knit readers and fans. And we like to live stream the podcast into that platform as well. And so it started out as a Moss to the Flame. You think about someone that's just drawn to things that are fascinating, which
Yeah,
is me.
it's a
I'm
good
like,
name.
oh, that sounds cool. Let me check
Yeah.
that out, you know. So any type of weird, spooky, alternative, different person, I love to have on the podcast. Now, because I am an indie horror author, and I believe so strongly in lifting up everybody's voice, that a lot of my interviews are with indie horror authors, which has been so much fun, and I so enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it really forces me to read books that I may not have picked up otherwise, because it's not my particular subgenre of horror. But and then I read it and I'm amazed, and I love talking with the authors who have become my friends now, you know. But talking with them about their process of writing the book compared to what my process is like. And it's such a fun experience. So Moss to the Flame, we have a big time over there.
That's awesome.
Awesome. That's awesome. We have met so many people and learned so much. And like
Incredible.
you said, subgenres of podcasts, of books, of like the whole horror themed interest is so great, and it keeps growing and it keeps growing and keeps growing. And we're curious, you know, and in this case, curiosity didn't kill the cat.
Right?
You know, when we started our podcast, I was a little worried at first, because I was like, well, I mean, you know, you've always got the cryptids, you've got some ghost stories, you've got whatever. I was worried that we were like gonna run out of like content, like ideas.
Right.
But as we keep going, we have a document of different episodes that we want to do, and it just keeps growing.
Yeah.
There's so much out there.
The further you go down in the rabbit hole, the more tunnels that appear. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can go, you know, you could do a whole episode on paranormal happenings throughout history, and like that. There's so many things that have happened. It's just wild. It's wild. So yeah, the world is your oyster for sure.
And you know what, you saying that and you telling us about your book, I really am seeing Ben Franklin in a different light.
He's naughty. He's naughty.
I haven't even read the book.
I'm telling you, there are so many things in his life that line up. He was one of the first people to draw and publish pornography. He had I'm telling you, he had
Mr. Franklin.
There are things in the public record that show he would write letters to his friends, and he'd be like, yeah, you should sleep with old women because they appreciate it more. Like, I'm telling you, naughty scoundrel, a scoundrel. No. And I went to his grave in Philadelphia. I went to the museum. I went to his grave because I felt like I write some pretty horrible things in this book, but I was like, you know what though? You earned it because you were naughty. And
it's keeping his name out there, you know?
Right? So it is what it is. I think a lot of, I could do an entire series on all of the founding fathers, and like people do not realize that, you know, they're like, our nation was found. I'm like, no, our nation was founded by a bunch of atheist criminals who like wanted to do their own thing.
There needs to be a podcast that's just like founding father spice.
Yeah.
And just like going into the whole thing.
Yeah.
But you know who I'm like picturing in my head this whole time? And we all know Benjamin Franklin from like the picture on the currency, like what he looks like.
Yeah.
But that's not who I picture anymore. Do you remember that episode of The Office where Michael hires a Benjamin Franklin character to come for the girls' day? And he's also spicy. This actor that came. He's got like the wig that makes his forehead look huge. That's all I can picture now.
Oh my God,
Benjamin
that's
Franklin
amazing.
Comes to mind. He's the only
That's
one.
amazing. Well,
go ahead.
Well, we had a couple came up to our table at a convention one time, and the wife was going to buy the book, and she was so excited about it. And the husband was this like mountainous, bearded, beastly man, you know, like we love him. We love a good mountain man around here. And so he was like, oh, I see. So it's not a founding father. It's a founding daddy. And I was like,
oh, yes.
So we have shirts in our store where we have like a sexy, quote unquote, sexy Benjamin Franklin with the white hair, but he's all like jacked and tattooed. It's just chef's kiss. Amazing. So
that's great. I was going to ask you if you illustrated the book.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I do. And actually, you're getting the sneak preview here. This is the hardback. The jacket sleeves just came in, and we have. I feel like, can you see the gold foil and the UV light on the rose?
Yeah.
Ooh,
and
nice.
The color hardback books are currently on their way to me right now. They are in the mail. So all of the illustrations are colorized, and it's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
That's so
I can't
cool.
even imagine.
Thank you.
When you go to the horror cons, do you take your family? Do you take your husband and son with you?
Oh yeah. So my husband, because he also writes too.
Right.
And so
exactly.
we're put, you know, he has stories in the anthologies. He has novels coming out in spring of next year, some later this year. And so he and I, people that have seen us, they know us, they remember us because we usually have matching outfits on, and they're all outrageous and very noticeable. And we make a big party of it for sure. Yeah. And then our son, occasionally, it depends on the conference. It depends on what it is and where it is. If it's, you know, spooky themed, like CreepyCon, he was with us for that. But when they're multi-day, primarily book conferences only, and if it's not like any children's literature, then he might hang out with the grandparents that weekend.
Yeah, sure.
You know? So that is, we definitely leave Fire the dog with his pup sitter because he cannot we cannot expose the public to him. So
So what is your next upcoming horror con? I know you said you probably won't be at Scarefest, or if you are, you'll just be there as, you know, an attendee.
For attending.
Yes.
I know that we have Tennessee Horror Fest. I am one of their guests. So that is, let me look at my list. We are in September. Okay, so actually before that, we are going to be at AuthorCon in St. Louis, Missouri, the weekend of October 4th through the 6th. And I'm very excited about that. That scares that care that we will get to see. It'll be like a family reunion. We'll get to see all of our horror people. So that'll be fun. That's a lot of horror writers there. So that's our very next one. We'll be at AuthorCon October 4th through the 6th.
Awesome. Do you guys get to do panels? Do you?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, I love a good panel. Yeah. I love, I have to keep myself in check and make sure I don't like over talk. I try to really make sure that I'm giving everybody an opportunity, and I'm not trying to like steal the show, because I don't ever want to do that. But I always have so much to add.
Yeah.
So,
It's hard when you're excited about and like passionate about a subject.
Oh, yeah.
Because we could talk all night.
Oh yeah. Well, and the panel that I'm on for AuthorCon that's coming up, the list just came out recently, and it's so funny. The title of it is Westerns and Weird Westerns and Historical Horror. And so Wiley E. Young is moderating that panel. And so I sent him a message and I said, Wiley, we are going to be talking about more than just Western, right? Because I'm not a Western, right? Not. I said, I am getting a pink cowboy hat to wear for the panel though, because this is like, I feel like I have to embody it, but I'm there for the historical part, not the Western part. So,
yeah. Oh, that's going to be great. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And Lindsay, you hit it on the head. I think out of all the guests we've had, your passion for what you do comes across, and I love it. It's a great energy. It's very positive, and I think you could even make a non-horror fan a horror fan.
It's not scary. Just come to the spooky side. We'll take care of you.
That's right. Come to the dark
side. We'll give you some Darcy quotes to read, some quiet horror. You'll be okay. You just hang out with me. Yeah. Thank you so much. I have had such a blast tonight. You guys are so fun.
Yeah,
thank you. So thank you. I hope that one day we get to meet in person, and we are definitely going to be getting those books and reading them, and we'll give you our feedback. We love it.
Yes.
Whether you love it or hate it, I want to know either way. Okay. And if you are traumatized, don't send me your therapy bills.
We won't be. Oh, wow. Now,
awesome.
When you mentioned The Exorcist, I could tell Ryan was chomping at the bit because he watched that when he was 4.
His favorite, all-time favorite.
And
brought the devil into his home.
Right. And now, and his mom now is like, she's like totally no spooky stuff, no scary movies, nothing like that. He sneaked and watched it, is what he did. Okay, and so ever since then he's loved scary movies. But anyway, that's a whole other story. I could tell he was chomping at the bit to
my
say,
gosh,
because you saw how he looked at you. He was like,
so many people that love horror. It's that when they watched it as a kid and they were traumatized. Do you know who does not like horror? My child, who has not seen any horror movies because we haven't traumatized him, you know. And so he'll be like, he's spooky adjacent, but he'll meet all these kids at conventions and they're like Chucky and Pennywise, and my son's like, no. So not a fan. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Well, that doesn't mean he won't grow up to be a fan, right?
Right. I'm a late bloomer, so
exactly.
We'll see.
And even if not, I feel like my sister, her other daughter, she's spooky adjacent as well. I would describe her
adjacent.
I would describe her as that. She does not like scary movies, like going to haunted places. She went to Brushy Mountain.
Okay.
With y'all. But I think that's probably the most. They go sometimes. Her and her husband go on like ghost tours or like stuff like that. But she doesn't really.
She's not going to Waverly Emporium or
anything.
But I will tell you this. I will tell you this. Karma is great because she married a man who loves all the things spooky.
Oh,
scary movies and all that. But anyway.
Oh my god,
it's fun. It's fun.
That's fun.
But
it's so funny to me how no matter what podcast guests we have or what subject that we're talking about, have you noticed that the subject of The Exorcist always comes back? I feel like it's been mentioned at least once in every episode.
Well, I feel like it did so much for the genre because it was so like culture shattering at the time that it's kind of like a not a starting point, because horror is one of the oldest genres. It told around the campfires when primitive times, but I feel like that film bringing horror and spooky stuff to the mainstream, it was pivotal in that. So no wonder it comes up. Absolutely.
Every episode, I swear.
And on that note, before we go, I do want to ask you what your favorite horror film is.
Oh, the impossible question. I'm gonna give you 2.
Okay.
Because there is one that my work, my body of work, my everything, my soul is like threaded with this movie. I love it so dearly. Is Sleepy Hollow, the Tim Burton version from 1999. Like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
just inject that into my veins. I love it. I
That's a
love
good
it. And Crimson Cobblestones and my Dorian Gray, but all of those, they are very much in that vibe. I watched that movie a lot. Like I love the aesthetic, the visuals and everything in that. I love it. So that is one of them. And then the other one I love for a totally different reason, because it is just, I feel like such a great nod to the genre as a whole, but also the twist at the end and just the twist throughout the whole movie, the way they delivered them in Cabin in the Woods. Prime time. Have you all seen that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Lindsay has. I have not, so I'm gonna watch it.
Oh my gosh, you must! It's so good. I wish that I could watch it for the first time over and over because it's so like it pays wonderful homage to all of the great horror tropes, but then also twists it in a way where you're like, what?
Yeah,
what?
it's wild.
Oh, I can't wait.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not too scary. I mean, it has a little bit of gore, but it's not like it's a really good entrance horror film, I feel like, too.
Okay.
Like it wouldn't you wouldn't be up at night, like not able to sleep.
Yeah,
like
no.
Okay, good.
No nightmares, I don't think.
Nah.
But it's good. It's a lot. It's got a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But in a fun, it's fun.
It is fun. And funny too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find I like to ask our guests that because we learn a lot about people just from asking that one question.
Yeah.
So, and we have learned so much about you, and we appreciate you sharing and giving us your time tonight. And we have kept you. We could just keep talking, but we won't.
I know. Right. We will not bore the people any longer. Right?
And we will hope to meet one day in person, like I said. And keep in touch, and we will too. We appreciate it, Marie. Thank you again.
You so much. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Stay spooky, everybody.